Your mind is a wonderful thing. It really sets your life and how your life works. But the mind doesn't do it by itself. You actually control it. So the mind is just really a blank slate. But how do you control your mind? How do you organize things such as your thoughts so that you can actually live an extraordinary life? Let's find out.
Welcome to Share.care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Hello and welcome to our Pondering Life episode of the Share.care podcast. Our belief is that global peace starts at home. Feeling safe, valued, and heard gives you a foundation to confidently step out and make the world a happier and safer place for everyone. Because in today's world, it's in your own selfish best interest to help others. Today, talking with Terry Tucker, and we're exploring the 4 truths leading to your uncommon and extraordinary life. Now, this is part 1 of a 2-part series. We're going to get into the first 2, which is control your mind or it will control you, and embrace the pain and difficulty we all experience. So we'll discuss those and explore how we can do that so you can live an uncommon and extraordinary life. G'day, Terry. Good to see you again. I was saying before, just as we hit record, love to see you smile. You've got so much enthusiasm as always.
Well, thank you, Damian. It's great to see you again, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you.
Oh, fantastic! Same here. It's I'm so glad we met. And don't we live in a really awesome world now? When we think about it, I mean, as painful as COVID was, we wouldn't really be thinking about this kind of medium for catching up with people and meeting friends and getting to know new friends. It just wasn't that. I mean, it did happen, but it wasn't common. I know from my perspective, I'm pretty certain I wouldn't have met you and a number of people I've met. So I find that really awesome that we can do that.
I do too. I always tell the story. I started a motivational speaking business right as COVID hit.
Yeah.
And, like so many other businesses, I had to figure out how to deliver my product in a different way.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody reached out and said, "Would you like to be a guest on my podcast?" And my honest to God response was, "What's a podcast?" I had absolutely no idea what a podcast was. And they explained it to me. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, that sounds like, something that I would enjoy. But I was so nervous. I had all these Post-it notes all around my camera, and somebody would ask me a question and I'd be like, the answer to that is, I was terrible. I was absolutely, I don't know if I'm any better now, but I was terrible. And that was 600 podcasts ago. And the number of people that I have met all over the world has been incredible. And I have yet to have a bad experience. I mean, they have been genuine. They have been gracious. They have been caring. It is, I agree. I would have never met you if it wasn't for this format.
Yeah, and I love that. Like you say, you've done 600 podcasts, and there's so many people out there doing podcasts and connecting with people. And I find it quite amazing. I really, really love that we've got this additional medium, because I mean, you have radio and TV, but it's one way. It's not interactive. Where this podcast, and similar to like we're doing, where we're having a chat and being able to share that with people, and people can tune in. It's I don't know. I just think we need more. I reference Crocodile Dundee a lot, and the scene where it's like you don't have any psychiatrists in Walkabout Creek, and goes, no, we just have Wally. If we have a problem, we tell Wally. Wally tells everybody else, no more problem. But I just feel like we're all Wallies now, which is great. I love it.
We are, but that's just it. We hold everything close to the vest. We don't want to share. And it, so many people are are afraid or they're concerned about where they are in their life. And yet I've come to understand that you're in that situation, and yet there are so many people that are looking at you and watching how you handle your life and would give anything they have just to walk 5 minutes in your shoes. You feel like, I'm just I got nothing to offer. And people look at you like you're incredible and extremely brave, etc. That, we're looking at the same thing, but it's two different ways of looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. What was it that, as you said, someone contacted you to be on their podcast. What was it that you highlighted that you're really sort of worried about that and had all these notes and stuff like that? Well prepared, good to see. But what? I love it.
I tried.
You're like me, ADD, OCD, whatever you want to call it. It's like, my friends do that when we're playing poker night or something, and they'll deliberately when they put the card to me, they twist it slightly and just go, and they go, "No, you're not allowed to touch it."
I understand. Believe me, yes.
Yeah, I got to straighten it. But what was it from that perspective? What do you think it is from your side of things? Because we're going to talk about the 4 Trees to Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. What do you think from your perspective fitting within that topic? Was it that you said, okay, I'm going to give that a go, as opposed to, was it a necessity? You were starting a new business and now you couldn't speak to it anyway. So it was like, okay, well, here's an opportunity to speak to someone and I'm going to face my fear anyway. I want to understand this whole facing fear part.
I think it was. It's interesting. I did a podcast about 6 months ago with a former NFL player, National Football League player, plays football here in the United States. And I realized you and my definition of football is entirely different. But
my definition is different to what the most of the world is as well. So
exactly right. But here in the US,
soccer.
This guy is 6'6", about 320 pounds. I mean, he put his forearm up on the desk and it covered the camera. I mean, like you couldn't see anything. It was huge. And I remember talking to him afterwards and I said, when I started podcasting, I said I was really nervous. And he was like, you were nervous too, Terry? He's like, I was scared to death that nobody would take me serious, that nobody, would listen to me. And I'm like, oh my God, you play at the highest level of professional football here in the US. You're a huge man. You're well educated, you're articulate. How would people? He's like, that's how I felt. I was afraid of going out. I was, putting myself out there as a podcast host. And I'm like, you and I have the same experience, just from opposite ends. You were afraid of being a host. I was afraid of being a guest. And I think it's just a matter of saying, I believe in my soul that I have something important to say. And so I want to find a forum to do that. Yeah. And it wasn't so much about the business. It wasn't so much about making money or, people knowing who I was. It was, I've learned things from this 11-year cancer journey, and I would like to put it out there in the hope that it helps somebody else. That's what it was for me, at least.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and what you've said there is you put it out there to because you want to help people. And I find that, from my perspective as well, it's the same sort of thing. My journey is a little bit different because I worked in film and television from a long way back. But it was different, even though I went to the same acting school as Hugh Jackman when Hugh Jackman was there. Nice. and he didn't look like Wolverine back then. He was this little skinny guy. We were at dinner together. I got a photo of us with dinner together, and it's like he's this tiny little guy.
Cool.
And so I was never really concerned about the putting myself out there in such, until later in life, where I was in a long-term relationship and it became that I can't even exactly, I'm not sure how to articulate it, but it was, what are you doing that for? And it was really about, I started to question, for me, it was like, what are they going to think? And I started to doubt myself from that side of things, wondering what they would think, wondering what that criticism would be. And it became, because it was someone who was very close to me, I started to take that on board too much, and I still have that a little bit, because not so much about me, but I wonder what they might be saying, which is really weird. And it's because they're not longer part of my life and haven't been for a long time. But there's a little part of me that's wondering, what, not as a fear as such, but wondering, what if they said this? What do they say that? And I quickly shut it down and just move on and say, I don't care. It doesn't matter. What matters is for me. But it's interesting how we do have those, no matter how much training you go through. So since when I was in high school, I did some acting back then. And then went to this same academy as Hugh Jackman and a number of other people, and did acting training there. I had my own TV show on TV, which I produced and did myself, and a talk show talking about pop culture and various different topics, and it was one of those things. I think that also, from my side, made it really difficult as well, because when I was at the acting school, it was very formal in what you did and how you acted and that kind of thing. And this is where, from my side of things, I didn't quite fit that mold. I was more of fart jokes work for me. They're funny. It doesn't matter wherever you tell a fart joke. It is, in my mind, it's funny, and I think the majority of people will. Yeah, well, I can see from your face too. You'll be something, and someone tells a fart joke, that style of joke, and you just laugh. But that wasn't acting, because I mean and it was at the time was a very, very close friend. Probably would we haven't been in touch for a long time. I'm actually, because he was older. Maybe he's not alive anymore, but he was very, very, very close friend and mentor. At that time, he was actually trained at RADA, the Royal Dramatic Academy, and was one of the leaders there, and actually came here to start the Western Australian. He was tapped on the shoulder to go out to Australia and start the West Australian Academy of Performing Arts. So he started that, and he was training me, and he was very formal in how the training was. So for me, I had this thing that had to be a certain way, and I spent years trying to fit this model. If I had been myself back in the day, I might have been, because my jokes were like Seinfeld's and that kind of thing. So I could have that was the kind of stuff I wanted to do, but that wasn't acting, so to speak. And I didn't feel I fit that mold. And it wasn't until I just went, I'm going to keep this one clean because I don't have to hit the expletive thing. But I went, F it. I'm just going to do what's right for me. And from that point of view, it changed my life dramatically when I went. I mean, it sort of, there was a long-term relationship that kind of ended as a result of that, although it was a number of factors. But it was like, I need to go this path. This is my path, and align with people that fit with that. And if others don't, that's okay. I don't have to sit there and justify and have the argument about why is my way the right way. It's not. It's right for me, and that's I need to, and I'm comfortable with that. Because you're talking about, when we're talking about the four truths, the first truth is taking control of your mind and control of you. And for me, that was where it was stepping back. I really had to let go of and which was funny, because I grew up with a mum that always said, doesn't matter what people think. From a young, and I hated that as a kid. She'd be wearing her beanies and doing things, and I'm like, that's so embarrassing. Don't do it. Small country town. It's like, and beanies are cool now. They weren't cool back then. Even footy beanies, you didn't wear them. It was kind of weird. It was, Aussie rules would call it. Some people know what I'm talking about.
There you go. Right.
But how is it from your perspective? Was that, because I know it's probably, I tend to rattle on a bit, but that was, for me, it was really this, taking control of my mind and you was really stopping. And it was Wayne Dyer that really, his book, How to Be a No Limit Person, where he talked about, you have to have your own candle flame inside be right for you, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It only matters what you think. What do you? Because he talked about one of his daughters, and his daughter would say, "Oh, so and so doesn't like me," and he says, "That doesn't matter. Do you like you? That's what's important." And so that was a big part of my journey, where I had these very formal things to aspire. Well, I was told I needed to aspire to, especially in the acting world, which was very detrimental to me, because some of the stuff I did later would have been really, and I noticed there was a lot of commercial success there. And I'm not complaining about that, because it's part of my journey. But that really, I mean, when you're talking about taking control of your mind and taking control of you, what's your experience in that regard of facing that and overcoming that?
I think starting out, I mean, you can't tell this from looking at me, but I'm 6'8" tall.
Mm,
And when I was 13 years old, I was 6'5" tall.
that's
And
tall.
I was really skinny. I had these great big feet, and my ears looked like Dumbo. My head had not caught up to my ears. And I got teased mercilessly,
Yeah.
because of my physical appearance. And I took that and I used it I threw myself into basketball, and I,
Yeah.
because basketball was a sport, unlike, here football or baseball where you had to have somebody with you. You could practice basketball. You could train in
Yeah.
basketball by yourself. All you
Yeah.
needed was a ball and a hoop, and that's it. You didn't need anybody else.
Yeah.
So I started in that regard that,
Mm,
it's like, okay, fine. I can't change my physical. I can't change the fact that I'm 6'5". I can't change the fact that I got big ears and big feet. So what am I going to do with that? And
mm,
I'll be honest with you. I mean, certainly as a kid, you're 13 years old. You want to be part of the group, but now you're being teased. But you realize as you grow up that people were teasing you because they were jealous of the fact that you had this ability. You were
mm.
good with the basketball that they didn't have. And I remember when I don't know, I was about 15 years old. I had my first of 3 knee surgeries that I had in high school.
Mm.
And I remember when I went back playing basketball after that my brain was putting all kinds of negative thoughts into my mind. Things like, hey, you're probably a step slower since, your surgery, since your operations, and college coaches aren't going to be interested in recruiting you. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I'm still playing at an elite level, and coaches are still reaching out about the possibility of playing for their college or university. I realized, I think at that age, that I needed to change the narrative, that I
Mm.
needed to put, no, you're not slower. Whatever the negative thought was, you change that. Put in something positive, because we all become what we think.
Yeah.
If and I use this example, if I took a basketball, went out onto the court, went to the free throw line, and I practiced actually shooting free throws, there would
Yeah.
be a certain area of my brain that would engage. Or,
Yeah.
if we could see it under an MRI, it would light up.
Yeah.
If I thought about taking that basketball, going out onto that court and practicing free throws, that exact same area of my brain would light up, would engage. So that's why I always tell people, be very careful what you say to yourself. We all talk to ourselves, whether we like to admit it or not.
Yeah.
But, be careful what you say. Because if you tell yourself enough times that you're bad at something or you're not good or whatever, you're going to hardwire your brain to the point where, yeah, you're not going to be good at that.
Mm.
And so, yes, I think the most important thing we can do is control our minds. And I'll end with this. There was a basketball coach here in the United States by the name of Bobby Knight, coached at Indiana University, very successful coach. And he had this quote that said, mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. So here was this great coach,
Mm. Yeah.
basically, you talking to and helping really good athletes use their bodies to be great basketball players on the court. But what he was really saying with that quote is that your mind or your mindset is
Mm.
4 times more important than anything your physical body's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it'd be going, it's probably more, but I love that, and that's an amazing analogy. I love that. I want to, because I think it's a really important topic to touch on that with your mind and being in control of you as well, with the teasing thing, because I mean, we all get that and we deal with that. And I know from my perspective, when I was younger, there was a bit of that as well. It was kind of funny, my journey there, and I can't remember being someone who teased in a bad way, but maybe I'm caving that. But because I remember when I was in primary school, I was I was one of the popular kids, yeah, and I was I was popular in primary school, and then at the end of grade 5, we did as we did. We went on holidays, and my uncle and aunt lived in South Australia, which is the next state across. I'm not sure the equivalent in United States terms, it's an 8.5 hour drive. So wherever you are in the United States, drive 8.5 hours. That's where my uncle and aunt lived.
Sure.
They lived on a beach, and we went there, regularly. We'd drive across the 8.5 hours and Christmas or whatever, and have a break with them from time to time. Not every year, but we did that. And so we did that at the end of grade 5. And for whatever reason, I don't know how this come up. I really don't. I think it was us kids that brought it up. But there was me and they had 3 children. We were there was 4 of us. There was my sister who's a year younger, and then there's another 2 that are a bit of a break between the next 2. But anyway, we must have been talking, and for whatever reason, there was an agreement that I would stay with their family, and their oldest would come back with mine. Which I don't know how that come up. I think it was us kids had an idea, and we floated it to the parents, and the parents thought, "Oh, that's a cool idea." Maybe because my cousin was a girl, my sister, they chatted. I don't know. Somehow it's come up. Anyway, so I've stayed. So my family's gone home. I've stayed in South Australia, and we've arranged so that I go to school there. So I've gone to this new school, gone to school there, it was a great experience to do that and meet other people and things like that. And then for whatever reason, things come up where my grandfather's had a whole bunch of property, and he's given property to each of the children. So my uncle and aunt have decided to move back. So they've sold their house. So at the end of the first term of school, they've actually sold their house and moving to the area where I was living. So I've come back, and I've come back thinking I'm the popular guy. When I come back to school, I'm this great hero, and everyone's going to love me and all this kind of stuff, and it's going to be so awesome. Oh, the opposite was so true. And I think maybe because they come in with that cocky attitude and was really, just like, and didn't handle it very well, or didn't adjust to it very well. All of a sudden I became the Putin, the pariah. And I was I was the butt of jokes, and I'm looking at my reaction with teasing, because I look at it now and I look at what happens with my son. Because my son, from a very early age, I taught him to like himself, and I always asked him that question: "Do you like yourself?" And yeah, Dad, I like myself. He got sick of me asking, so I got to the point where he doesn't, I don't need to ask him anymore. He just walks, and the school has said that he just, they said it's amazing how he's his own person. He goes his own way. He really doesn't matter what other people think. He does the right thing. He manages himself well if there's an issue, and there was an issue with a bully. One of his friends was being bullied, and he handled it like a professional. He contacted the appropriate people. He gave the support where it was, and I only found out about it afterwards. He just went and did it, and that was at 11. He did that, and I look at it too, because he comes to our adult poker nights too, where it's just boys, and it's really a very boys, lots of sledging. This is 6 inches. That's what you tell women. This is 6 inches. That's what you think. 6 inches, all that kind of stuff. It's just really, really, lots of very heavy, and he holds his own in that space. He gets legend, and he throws it back, and his counters are like top notch. But he realizes, and this is where I'm wondering with the teasing thing, because most teasing, and I look at it from my perspective too, when I'm now in that space, I'm quite, so if that happens, I don't know if self-deprecating is the right word, but I kind of approach it when that happens. It's like I just own it rather than try and go, oh no, it's not. And even when something comes up where it might be a situation, it's like, well, hang on, and I'll listen and go, well, where someone's maybe criticizing, so well, what's my component of that that I might be contributing to that? And it's amazing how that changes the dynamic from that teasing side of things. And because when I look at my son's, he just owns it, and then either throws something back or doesn't phase him. It just is, the term is water off a duck's back. And I know from my perspective, when we're doing it, if you're looking at it, if people if you don't react, then there's nowhere to go with that.
Right.
Is my experience, and so it seems to be worked with my son, who's not had a problem in any. Although to be fair, he's he's 14, he's 6 foot, and he's almost a black belt in karate and can do 100 push-ups, so he's well built as well. So there's probably a few people that are going to try that. But as I said, in the space where he's been with adults with very heavy sledging, he hasn't been fazed by anything that's been said at all. He's just been part of the group. So that's where I look at it from that perspective. Maybe with kids and that, it's not an issue, but when he's been in a place where he's been technically outgunned, he's come back and done a Ukraine and just gone, I'm holding my own. And I wonder how much of that is, one, liking yourself, recognizing that you as a person, different from behavior. If you trip over, I do that. How often do you trip over and you're looking around going, oh my God, who's watching? And I do that and I go, yeah, I just tripped over. It's like, own it. And I just wonder how much that makes a difference when we're talking about controlling your mind, controlling you, rather than thinking of yourself when something goes wrong, thinking that's something wrong. And that maybe that's the wrong term to use. Something goes wrong. When something that's unexpected happens that would normally be something that's embarrassing, to actually take control of your mind, take control of you, and just own it. Whatever it is, own it. And then, because I had it in a professional, I'm on a number of part of a number of companies. I'm on a board, CEO. I've just got appointed CEO of another company last week, which is really cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And an issue came up where one of the board members, actually wasn't the board, but secretary sent something out, and it was just wrong. It was. I won't get into the detail, but it was a public statement that shouldn't have been a public statement. And I'm like, and I was initially going, oh, I could react to this, and I just pulled back, took a few breaths metaphorically, and I responded the next day and addressed it the next day and addressed it much more differently rather than just reacting. And that's where I'm wondering, coming back to this teasing thing, using in those professional environments, a similar sort of principle applies. If we train ourselves early on to, one, have that in my heart, I'm this shining light, everything's okay, I'm a wonderful person. Yeah, maybe I fluffed up, maybe I tripped over. I don't need to be embarrassed about that. Just own it and go, yeah, I tripped over. Hey, cool. And move forward. And how that would change the dynamic from a teasing perspective. You just owned it, went, hey, where does someone go with that from your mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as far as I know, there's only been one person on the face of the earth that's been perfect. And it's not me and it's not you. But, I think back on my wife and I have one child. We have a daughter. And I remember she was being bullied, being teased in, I don't know, probably the same thing, 4th, 5th grade, somewhere in there. And this girl had thrown a bat or a dodgeball at her face, hit her in the face, broke her glasses, and had this cut her face. And, as parents, you immediately want to jump in and say, okay, we're going to handle this.
Yeah.
And, we said to her, what did you do? And she told us, and it's okay, that was appropriate. And it was like, and our daughter got, unfortunately, my height. So, now she's like 6'2". So, she doesn't get messed with very much. But we would constantly ask her on the way to school every day, do you want us to get involved? Do you want us to go talk to the principal? Do you want to? Yeah, nope, I'll handle it. I'll take care of it. Mm-hmm. And it was like, and she did. And I didn't ask how she handled it. I asked if she needed help handling it. And I think that goes back to how my wife and I raised our daughter, how you and your significant other raised your son. And I'll never forget this. My partner, when I was a police officer, has a master's degree in psychology. And this was when our daughter was first going to school. We are pulling up, one car, and the teacher's opening the door and literally, prying these kids out of the car. The kids are screaming and hollering and kicking and fighting and everything. And they're pulling them out of the car and getting them into the school. And then it's our turn. And we get up there. And our daughter, she's in a car seat in the back. I unhook the seat. She kisses me on the cheek. She's like, see you this afternoon, Dad, and gets out of the car. I cried all the way to court. I had court that morning. I cried all the way to court. I'm like, oh my God, my kid doesn't love me. She's not throwing a fit. And my partner was like, you're an idiot. It's like, no, don't you understand that you have given your kid the security, the confidence to say, okay, I know I'm loved. I know Mom and Dad got my back. I'm fine with this. I'm going to go learn, and then I'm going to come back to my parents at the end of the day. It's okay. I don't need to throw a fit, because those kids were not secure enough in the relationship they had with their parents. So I think a lot of it starts with you. A lot of it starts with me as parents and how we raise our kid. And there's a lot of kids that it's helicopter parenting. Boom, something bad happens. Nope, I got to get involved. No, let your kid fail. Let your kid make mistakes. Let your kid be on a sports team where they learn, what it's like to be a good teammate, where, you support each other, where you don't always get your way, where bad things happen. I mean, sports teaches us about life, but we never give the kids a chance to do that because parents are always getting there too. No, my kid needs to play. No, your kid stinks. Sorry, your kid needs to sit on the bench. I remember there's a basketball coach here at Connecticut University, the women's team, very successful. And he always says, I will treat you fairly, but I will not treat you equally because one may be good at one thing. I'll let you do that. You're not good at that. I'm not going to let you do that. So I'll treat you fairly. I won't treat you equally. And maybe it's just how we raised our kids.
Yeah, I love that, what you're saying about treating fairly, not necessarily equally. And from it, what do you think made that difference for you? Because I know from my perspective, when my son was young, well, from the very beginning, it was always about character. Even from an education perspective, I put that second because we can always go back and learn. And people do. My mom, even though she went and passed high school when she was a child, she went back at 50 to redo high school because she just felt like it. And it was like,
good for her.
She thought, yeah, exactly. She thought, I want to learn this again. Just make sure I'm up to speed. And she went. So she's in high school with kids that are high. It wasn't a mature age high school. She went to high school. So she's
good for her. That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you go, well, okay, from that side of, where was I going with that? But now I've lost my train of thought. With the, from that side of things, of giving that a go, being in control of yourself, being able to, I completely lost my train of thought there.
Well, let me.
You jump in.
I think I know where you're going with this. And let me tell you a story because this story or this individual really impacted me when I was in college. So long before I get married and have kids and all that kind of stuff. I went to a military college in South Carolina called the Citadel, and one year we had a president of the school. It was a man by the name of James Stockdale. And Admiral Stockdale had been the highest ranking prisoner of war in the infamous Hanoi Hilton prisoner of war camp in Vietnam. He was a fighter pilot, naval aviator, shot down in 1965, spent 8 years in captivity, being beaten and tortured, and all kinds of things happening to him. And he actually organized the prisoner resistance against the Viet Cong. They were going to parade him as propaganda. He slit his head with a razor so they couldn't do that. They put a hat on his head and were going to parade him. He beat himself in the face and swollen his face to the point where he was unrecognizable. And he ended up winning our nation's highest award for valor, the Medal of Honor. And I remember being at an event. I didn't spend a lot of time around him. He was the president of the college. I was just a cadet. But I remember being at an event with him, and somebody asked him, who survived that brutal, torture and captivity and everything? He said, let me tell you who didn't survive. He said it wasn't the big, tall, strong, tough guys that thought that they could handle, anything that was thrown at them. Because you give human beings enough time, they'll figure out a way to break another human being.
Yeah.
He said it wasn't even the optimists, the people who thought, well, we're going to be rescued by Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter. And he said Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter would come and go, and we weren't rescued. We weren't let go. And those people died of a broken heart. He said the people who survived were the people who understood what they could control and controlled it. And he said, for us, it was literally the thoughts in our mind and our breathing. Everything else was at the discretion of the enemy. When we ate, when we went to the bathroom, when we got an exercise break, when we were beaten, when we were tortured, that was all at their discretion. He said the people that survived controlling the things they could control in their life. And he said for us, it was just breathing and thoughts in our mind. Going back to what we were talking about earlier. And think about it today. We're not in captivity. We're not, in a cell. We know when we're going to eat and stuff like that. So we probably have a few more things we can control in our lives. But I always remembered that story. It's about controlling the things we can control and letting go of the things we can't.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's where I was going, and you hit that. Well done. You could hit that. I was going around a second because that was a part I was getting to with my son, was from that perspective as far as education goes. Initially, I was looking at it when he was in primary school. I was looking at it, and it just didn't, something clicked for me, and he doesn't seem to understand why he's at school. So I asked him, I said, "Why do you know why you're going to school? What's the reason for going to school?" And he goes, "No." So I talked him through. I said, "Well, you see what Dad does, where earn money, that kind of thing, so we can live. We can go out on holidays, do all the things that we do. The reason I can do that is because I went to school and learned education and learned different things, so that now I can take that, I can use that to earn money. I can use that to add value to people's lives." And that's how we earn money. And then we can do that. So that's why you're going to school. And from that point, I noticed he shifted. And because I think it comes back to what you're saying about control. He understood, that gave him that element of control. He understood what his reason for going there was. It wasn't just you're going there. There's a reason for this. And now he had control of how he could determine what that outcome would be, and that was from a very young age. I said it was early grade 3 or grade 4. I think it was grade 3 that we had that discussion. And then when we move into secondary school, I'm looking at it, and he was behind, not from his own fault and not because of his learning ability, just because of circumstance where he hadn't got that education at that time that he needed, the foundational stuff. So he was behind, and that was one of the things too. In grade 3, in grade 4, he was actually grade 3 level academically, and we worked on that. And that was never, oh, you're a dumbass. I actually refused it. It was, to me, it was always, to do with hadn't had that foundation. If you haven't got the foundation, and so we worked on building that up, and he did that. He was guided. But he got to the point, and then we get to this, he was getting, in secondary school, he's getting some support classes. Didn't want to be as part of those support classes anymore. He wanted to, and so, well, what are we going to do to get out of that? And how are you going to do? And what's the plan? So we went through that. And then I said to him, I said, "What grade do you want to get in school?" Now, being a parent, the grade wasn't high enough from my perspective, but I didn't say anything. Because that was the point of the exercise, was it's your life. You choose what's right for you. It's not for me to dictate what you should be doing with your life. And so he chose a grade which was relatively high, but it wasn't the highest. And I went, okay. And so he's gone from not being close to that and progressively. And then last year, not only did he hit it before last year, but then he in certain areas, then he hit it consistently. And then last year he blew past it and was getting A pluses. And even though his goal was lower. So he went just because what we did was said, okay, this is the focus. And what I'm suggesting you do is to maximize, because I'm all, I'm about maximizing and being efficient. I have a time management program called Max Time, which is about I call ROE, return on effort. I'm lazy. I don't want to be doing things that take longer than I need to. And that's what we did. We went, okay, what if you come home at the end of the day and you just review everything you've done, all the key points. Anyway, it doesn't have to be everything, but all the key points that you need to pass the test, that's going to stick in your mind better and you're going to perform better. That for him doesn't take long. And then he does his homework, which he knocks that off, and he works it out that if he does it, at times when he's got free time at school, he doesn't have to do it at home. and when we're driving to school or back, part of the thing is to read. So he'll pull out his book and he'll read, and he'll use that time to read, and then he can play his video games that he likes playing. And so he spends more time playing well, I wouldn't say more time. He spends a lot of time playing video games because he enjoys it. I mean, he does sports and all that kind of stuff too, but spends a lot of time playing video games, but he's done all the key things he needs to do, but he's in control. He's controlled. He's worked out how to structure his day. I look at it, and initially my thought was, are you playing too much time video game? And then if I was really honest with myself, at that age, what was I doing? Computer games were huge. I spent a lot. I was like, shut up, Dad. in a voice, my own self-control, shut up.
Right. Right.
And we turned it into a thing where, as in goal setting within the game. It's all right. This big boss. Have you got to this big boss yet? We made it this, and it's about. And so rather than saying that the game is a thing, it's you're showing determination to get through, and it become encouraging to do that. When you want to achieve something, you've got to keep pushing through. There's one time where he spent 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours getting, because there's one stage you couldn't get. And I said, that's real determination. That's what determination is, continuing regardless. So that was the story I was getting to, which you nicely summed up, and I've just fleshed out and butchered to the hell. But
no, you did great. No,
because it was, for me, that was my practical experience of that with my son, from the side of things of getting him to have control of himself. It was giving him that freedom to do that. And it sounds like a similar sort of thing with your daughter. She had that issue, and she said, "Okay, I'm going to deal with it." No doubt, as a parent, because we're protective. You would have been wanting to. I can imagine. Oh,
but it was. But the way I looked at it was, as long as she's not in physical danger, this is going to be a good experience for her. This is going to, you're going to figure, this is going to be a great life lesson, regardless of how it goes. Whether you succeed, whether the kid gets kicked out, whatever it is, you're going to learn something other than 2 + 2 is 4 and that kind of stuff. You're going to learn a life lesson, and that's. That goes back to, why are sports, in my mind, important? Because it teaches us to be part of a team. It teaches us to work together. It teaches us that life isn't fair all the time. I mean, all the things that we learn in sports, they're a microcosm of life. And yet we've got all these parents that are like, they're yelling at the coach, and the coach is an idiot. And it's like, I'm sorry, I played college basketball. You didn't even play in grade school. So I know I've forgotten more than you will ever know. And you're telling me I'm an idiot? Why? Because your kid isn't playing? What did your kid do? We always used to say in basketball, good teams are made during the season. Good players are made in the off season. What did your kid do in the off season to get better? It's going to make me want to play him or her. Give me that. If they didn't do anything, then stop yelling at me. It's not my fault. Talk to your kid.
And what example is that setting for the kid as well? For seeing the parent lose it and not have that control to fully understand. I mean, one of those things, and we may have talked about this before, but for me, with that side of things, we talk about, because New Year's a little while ago now, but New Year's resolutions came around because it was New Year, and I was thinking about that, and I really couldn't come up with any, because I had all my goals had been set from before. And I'm like, well, is there anything else that I need to add to that? And there wasn't at the time, but then it came up in a conversation. And I think I'm a pretty good listener. I think, I mean, from an interview, in that people say that they open up, and I think that's just purely from a listening. But that was then, it came up in conversation. That became my resolution this year. I was actually going to listen more, even though I was a good listener. I was going to listen more. And that was going to be my focus for the year, just really focus on listening to others. So when someone's talking, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say next, even though I'd been doing that anyway. I was really going to get to what are they really saying, and not saying with their words, but saying with their body as well, and the tonality, and really connect with that. And the dynamic, even though I was good at that, it took it to a whole new level very quickly. And I was wondering from that perspective as well, when we're talking about self-control, and controlling your mind, controlling you, how much of that is being willing to listen to yourself? When you look at this parent that's yelling and screaming and how much of that would be, okay, I need to listen to what's going on here and really pay attention, because if I'm actually listening and looking what's going on, I'll be assessing the situation fully and looking at it and saying, well, what is my child's skill level, if I'm going to be honest, to what I'm expecting the position they play. And because I put, and again, it applies in corporate. I deal with this all the time where, and it certainly made even, I'm on a number of things, but I know I'm pretty good. But this dynamic has changed dramatically in the past few months just from this listening, where all of a sudden it's gone to a whole new level where I will look at a situation and go, okay, you're saying that, this is going on. All right, now that I've listened, I've taken the time, I've listened, pause, usually, and then I'll listen, take in the situation, and then report later. Usually the next day. We had an incident where on a construction site, one of my clients, yesterday, I was actually driving out. This person comes screaming down the road the other way, just a slight elbow, but there was trees there you couldn't see. I've come around the corner. This car's all of a sudden going sideways. And so I could have reacted in a different way, but I calmly, I called the safety officer and I said, this has gone on. And then I took the time to actually think about what that was, describe it properly, and then I reported the detail the next day so that it actually got it all clear rather than just throwing that out there. To really listen, again, using that as an example, listening to my own self in that situation. How much do you think listening, and from your experience, examples of where you think that has played a part?
Yeah, so one of the things one of the many jobs I've had in my life is I was a hostage negotiator on a SWAT team.
Yeah.
And I think we might have talked about this before.
Yeah.
But we had this formula that they gave us. And if you think about what a police officer does, 99% of what we did was face to face with another individual. So whether we're giving you a ticket for driving too fast or we're answering a radio run for a fight, it's face to face. And so you can see visual clues that people are giving out. If you're talking to somebody and they're kind of like, looking around, maybe they're going to run, and you can see that. Or if they're standing there and they're balling up their fists, maybe they want to fight you. And so you can see that and you can act accordingly. You can sit them down, you can handcuff them, you can put them in your car. But the formula they gave us on the SWAT team as negotiators was 7-38-55. And it had to do with how we communicate a message to each other. Yeah. So 7% of the message is the words that you use. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 38% of the message is your tone of voice. Yeah. And 55% of the message is your body language and facial expressions. Yeah. So if you think about what we did as negotiators, we were not with the person. So I'm not looking at the person I'm negotiating with. I could be blocks away on the phone or behind a locked door or whatever. So that whole 55, I don't get. Yeah. I could have said something and, on the other side of the door, they're, oh, what an idiot he is. That could have been happening. Yeah. And I couldn't see that. So we had to get good at understanding what was going on based on what people were saying, but also based on what people weren't saying and how they were saying it. Yeah. And so it's and you made a really good point. You talk about listening to, somebody saying something and you're formulating your response to that. Well, you're not really listening to them. You're listening to respond. And what you're doing now is what we used to call listening to understand. Okay, Damien, I hear what you're saying. I may agree with you. I may not agree with you, but help me to understand where you're coming from. Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, we're communicating on, even as hostage negotiators, the first thing I would say was, hi, I'm Terry. What's your name? And sometimes they'd be like, don't worry about my name. It's like, okay, what do you want me to call you? Because that's humanizing it. I didn't say, hi, I'm Terry and I'm a policeman. Yes. I just said, hey, I'm Terry. And I'm trying to humanize this relationship we're having. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. I'm listening to understand where you're coming from. Oh, okay. I get, now we're humanizing it, not just, oh, I'm the boss and I'm going to tell you what to do kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Is that part of, because when we're talking about, I know we're spending a bit of time on this, but I think it's an important point, is you controlling your mind, controlling you. Listening to yourself as well. From that side of things, I know from my perspective, someone put it to me as solitude, and maybe that's the case because I've turned into a bit of a Forrest Gump. I've down here in the beach house, I've got this massive lawn. I've bought a self-propelled electric lawnmower, and I will go out there, no earphones or anything like that, and I love it. I used to have someone do my lawns and all that kind of thing, and now I'll go out there and I've got my plans this weekend where I'm going to be out there just going backwards and forwards with my lawnmower. No earphones, no music, no nothing, just alone with my thoughts, thinking about things. And I love that process. And I'm really listening to going in circumstances, not only what it is that is going on in my life, but how I'm reacting to it. How can I deal with that situation more effectively? What can I do differently? And because that's where I wanted to get with the self-control, link those together. You control your mind and control you. I mean, as you say, that the 4-to-1 ratio, if you control your mind, it becomes a lot easier. And I'm just wondering from that side of things, from your side, for the listeners, practical experiences of how you actually can do that listening. For me, I mean, not everyone has a big lawn that they can do a Forrest Gump. And what are other ways to actually listen to yourself so you can get control of yourself?
And I think you make a great point. I recently read a book called Do Hard Things by a guy by the name of Steve Magnus. And he cites in that book this study that I don't know if he was a psychologist or a professor or what he was, but he took mostly younger people and he put them in a room. And the only thing in the room was a table and a chair. And they were not allowed to have their phones or their iPads or no devices whatsoever. And he kept them in the room for 15 minutes. The only other thing in the room was a buzzer. And if you press the buzzer, you gave yourself an electric shock. Now, and I read this and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
67% of the men and 28% of the women shocked themselves, including one guy who shocked himself on average every 5 seconds. And so I think what that says to us is we are not comfortable doing what you said, taking my lawnmower and going out and just being alone with my thoughts. So I think a real simple way to do this is spend 5 to 10 minutes every day just sitting alone with yourself. I'm not talking about meditating. I'm not talking about praying. Just sit there. Let your mind go wherever your mind goes. And if you can do that, then all of a sudden you start becoming aware of yourself. And I think you also start becoming more in tune to your own thoughts, your own, what's going on here? It's not like, okay, I got to do, I've got to constantly be connected with something. No, don't be connected with anybody. Just sit in a chair for 5 or 10 minutes a day and let your mind go wherever it goes. Because if you do that, now all of a sudden you're going to be comfortable with being like you are, with being alone with yourself. Because obviously from that study, the vast majority of younger people, especially, are not comfortable being alone with themselves.
That's an interesting point that you raised, because I'm thinking about it from the young person's perspective and looking at my son. Because my son, he has a mobile phone, he has an iPad, he rarely uses either. We go out. Well, it was funny. We went out for dinner the other night, and he turned to and I saw he hadn't taken his phone. I said, "Do you want to take your phone? So we've got some stuff to do while we're because you're going to be out with adults, you might get bored." And he goes, "No, I'm not going to take my phone." I was like, "Are you 14? Really?" I was like, "What 14-year-old does not have their phone strapped to their side or to their front anyway,
or their head?" Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I was surprised by that, but I really paid it. It was because I noticed he doesn't seem to. It'll sit in his room, and he does get online and he talks with his friends when they're playing video games together, that kind of thing. So they have that interaction, but he's not sitting there on social media. He watches some weird YouTube stuff that he finds funny, and I'm showing my age, going, what? But I was wondering about this solitude thing, because it is really, for me, because I'm thinking about that. I mean, I guess I was lucky in that regard. I did grow up in a small country town. I didn't have a computer console like some of my friends did. So if I wanted to play video games, I had to go to their house, which I wasn't always there to do. But we went out and rode bikes around and things like that. But I do remember this solitude thing where even in my early 20s, there was times where I just took time out. I would go and lay on a hill and just look at the clouds and just look at the clouds. That was it. And trying to go, what's that shape? And really, and I guess it's something I've always done. So now that I think about it, it's interesting. How do you get someone that is not in that space to actually go, hey, we need that space to relax? Is it? I know, and it's from my perspective too. I mean, I've got my you couldn't see it, but anyway, my phone and stuff like that. But my phone, my computer, I don't have, even when you look at the icon for my emails, it doesn't tell me how many unopened emails are there. I turned it all off because I don't want that distraction. That was a conscious choice. Is it that easy? Can you just go, but how do you get to that point where I think it's easy. I think life's easy. I think life as a whole is easy, but that's another story.
I agree. We make life much harder than it is. Yeah. I don't know how you do that. I think part of it is you have to want to do it, and it's almost like you don't do it because you don't know that you need it, and it's sort of ignorance of what we need and how our imagination, do we give ourselves time to imagine, to think, to, wonder, to, create and things like that, that I'm not sure we do, because everything is firing off a message to your friends or what are people saying about me? How many emails do I have? Oh, wait a minute. How many people responded to my text? Who cares? In the scheme of things, again, that's why I think it's so important to spend some time alone with yourself, and just let your mind go where it goes. Today's been a good day. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow, or you know what? I found out somebody's got cancer, or we're going to think about that. Wherever your mind goes, let it go. And I think you get in touch with yourself. We're not in touch with ourselves. Heck, we're not in touch with everybody else. We think we are because, we're sending, emails and texts and, Instagram pics and TikToks and everything. We're in touch. You're not in touch. No. I remember hearing somebody said, and I thought this scared the heck out of me. That most human beings do not have at least one person in their life that they can be radically honest with. Really? Think how pathetic that is. Wow. You don't have one human being in your life where you can express radical honesty. That's sad. That's sad. And I think part of that is, well, are you being honest with yourself? It's got to start, in here. And before you can be honest with another human being, we all have this is how I want the world to see me. Is that really how you are? Yeah. For most of us, the answer would be no. I love that. Honest with yourself. That's really, because I do wonder, and I think about that a lot, whether, and I deal with that with a number of, and it's been with a number of legal cases. I'm helping, I kind of was half stories there. I wasn't sure whether I should go there or not, but I'm going to go there. It's, helping a lot of people. I've helped a lot of people in legal situations where they're dealing with the family court, and and that's a place where there's honesty goes right out the window, and where we've had success, and we're talking dramatic success, because I talk about the court being unfair, particularly against men, and from my experience, where they've been honest rather than making a big case about the other person, but going, hey, this is my experience with the child, made it about the child because it's what it's about. And they've been honest about that relationship with the child. The whole thing shifted, and it's just massive positive results. I had one dad, and deal with women as well, but I'm working with women as well, but one dad in particular. Judges finish at 4:00. That's their time. The court finishes at 4:00, and then they go off and do whatever they do in chambers or whatever judges do. This one dad put this thing forward and was honest, talked about the relation, and he hadn't seen his daughter for 12 months. Mum wouldn't let him. And he put forward the case where initially a lawyer had prepared an affidavit. And I said, that this is, and it was all about attacking the mum. And I don't know. I'm not getting into what was true or wasn't true, because I don't know and I can't answer that question. And I said, this is one. Do you really want the daughter at some point, maybe, that she reads this? That was my first thought. You're just slagging off the mum. And he goes, oh, that's what the lawyer said. And I said, well, really, this is, I suggest we do. And so we rewrote it. He actually filed it, but it didn't get served to the mum because someone else said, do it, otherwise you'll lose your court date and it'll drag on longer. Well, you haven't seen your daughter for a year. Well, it doesn't, an extra month, what is that going to matter? And I say that slightly facetiously, but also to being practical about it.
But anyway, so he'd filed the affidavit, but he hadn't served the mum. And then he thought about and going, hang on a minute, maybe this is not the right thing to do. And I said, well, let's do this differently. Let's do the affidavit that with the other one we've prepared, file that, ask the court to strike it out, if the first one, so it's never seen. And they did. So he filed this affidavit and said, can you strike out the other one? They said, it hasn't been served to her. Can you strike it out? They removed it from the portal. She will never see it. More importantly, the daughter will never see it. And then when they get to the court, on the court day, where they're supposed to finish at 4:00, the judge is, and this affidavit was all about the relationship he had with his daughter. He talked about the time he had with her when they, because he was with her up to about age 15. That's when the mum went away. So he talked about that, or maybe it was 30. Anyway, around that age, and that was what the affidavit about. This is my relationship with my daughter. 4:00 comes, and they're still talking about it. 4:30 comes. The judge is still there talking about it, going, what can we do here? What can we do? Because, I mean, obviously the judge has to deal with things in an appropriate way in accordance with the law, but she stayed back till 5:30 trying to work out what were ways within the law that they could do there and then to address this. And it worked out they could get some supervised time, and that was the plan. Okay, because you haven't, then there's a risk if you haven't seen the daughter for, the child for 12 months. You can't just throw the person in there and we'll throw the child in there and without some guidance. So that's where they got to, is okay, let's work towards some supervised time. But the point was, because he was honest with himself and addressed the situation, as opposed to, and I know in that situation people talk about, they say things that aren't true. We just kept it honest about the daughter, and the judge said stayed back an hour and a half to try and work this out. And that's where I wonder how much, when we be honest with ourselves and honest to the people around us, how big a difference that makes to our life, rather than trying to project something, that earnestness that he put forward. This is my relationship with my daughter. This is what it was like. I think that was my opinion, had an impact. And I just, wonder how big with trying to project, because I know we get that plastic, and as you mentioned before, we've got to project out to the world, we're this kind of thing and what other people think. Well, it doesn't matter what you do. Even as you mentioned, there's only one person that's been perfect, and even he had his haters. So, so what chance have you got to be liked by everybody?
Well, I think that goes back to what you were saying about character.
Yeah.
What kind of person are you? If you're a person of good character, this isn't about me, defiling my wife, at the expense of my child. This is about how can we amicably, I don't care what you've done. Yes, I mean, people have done horrible things, and I understand people are hurt and they lash out. I get that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what does your character tell you to do? Does it say I'm going to lie so that my kid hates my wife, or the mother, or are you a person who's like, well, I'll be honest, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I did, but how can we reconcile this and put the child's best interest? I mean, we know. I mean, nobody wins in a divorce. Yeah. Everybody loses. I don't care, even if you win, you lose.
Yeah.
Because usually at the center of those are the kids, and you use them as pawns, to try to, well, the kids like me better than they. Really? Is that where we're going? I don't ever. I mean, fortunately, in 30 years, I mean, my wife and I can't imagine not seeing my daughter for a year. I can't imagine having to go through that. I mean, talk about. I'd lose my mind. I mean, my daughter and I are incredibly close. So, I mean, she is with my wife as well. But I mean, what does that say about you if you're willing to lie, to hurt another person, to make you feel better about yourself, or to make your child, or to make you look better in your child's eyes?
Yeah. And that's why it's coming back to this. And I know we spent a fair bit of time on the self-control your mind, control you, which is, I think, really critical, being able to do that, being honest with yourself. That's part of that control. Really, it is hard to be honest. And that's why Share.care's first principle is be responsible for yourself. And we have that quote, it's a painful thing to look at yourself and know that you've caused the problem. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but
you're right.
It is, when you can look at that and go, well, it's okay. I think for me, separating me from the behavior made that easy. because I'm a good person. I'm not perfect. I'm a ray of sunshine inside. In my heart, I'm a ray of sunshine. I'm this big ball of light is how I visualize it. So I think I'm freaking amazing as a person. Some of my behavior could do with a bit of work. Certainly in the past, I remember there was one time where we had I was helping out at a friend's wedding, and they had the bridal car to be parked out front, and there was a space there, and someone drove in and parked. There was no sign saying don't park here or anything like that. So I've walked down the front of the church and gone, "What are you doing parking there? Where's the bride going to park it?" And the guy with his girlfriend or wife or whatever is obviously, he's upset by that. It wasn't the best way of handling it. Now I could be beating myself up about that, going, "What a dickhead!" Well, I think I did at the time, but now when I look back at it, and that's how I deal with those situations. That's coming back to what we're talking about with bullies and things like that. When you mess up, if you just own it and say, "All right, I messed up," that I'm an okay person. This behavior, they're separate. I messed up. I'll learn from that and do better next time, which I think is a better way of learning, because they say children learn faster than adults. I think that's wrong, personally. I think the only reason children learn faster than adults is because they're not trying to protect something and hold on to it. They go, "Oh yeah, I messed up," or what's going on here? How can I do that? Coming back to that listening thing. That's my experience with that. How would you expand on that?
I would totally agree. I mean, obviously, most of our politicians haven't learned that. I mean, because they make these bold-faced lies, and then it's all over the media. If you own your mistakes, you don't give anybody anywhere to go with it. What are you going to write an article that said Terry did this? Yeah, Terry already admitted he did that. Okay, big deal. He already said he did it. So I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with I mean, I made a mistake. I'm a human being. Where I think the sort of the rubber meets the road is, did you learn something from that mistake? Or are you going to make it again and again and again and again? Did you learn something from it? And I think if you take that as, yes, I made a mistake. Here's what I learned from it. And here's how I'm going to change my behavior. Yeah. If you put those three together, I made a mistake. Yeah, we all make mistakes. No big deal. What did you learn from that mistake? I learned this. And as a result, I'm going to change my behavior and do this. Great. Where does anybody go with that wants to attack you? I don't think anywhere. You don't give them anywhere to go. As long as you say mistake, learn from it, going to change. And as long as you change, there's nowhere to go with it.
Because that does lead into the second point, where you talk about embrace the pain and the difficulty we all experience in life, and use that difficulty to make you stronger and more resilient. Because that self-deprecating attitude of going, "Hey, I messed it up," that can be pain until you're used to that and going, "Well, that's okay." That can be really hard to do.
Yeah, because we all think we're perfect. We all think mine's the right way, and and again, that goes back to listening. That was one of the things we talked about, tactical empathy, when I was a negotiator. And tactical empathy was, help me understand why we are here, so that I can help you get out of this situation safely. Now, listen to what I just said. Help me to understand, not agree. I mean, I'm not going to tell you I'm going to agree with what you did or you said, but help me to understand it so that I can help you get out of it. That was tactical empathy. Help me understand. You murdered somebody. I'm not agreeing with that. I'm not saying, it was okay, no big deal. You're a homicide suspect. We're here to arrest you, and you're probably going to spend the rest of your life in jail. But help me to understand so that I can get you out. And I think that's the thing. I totally agree with you. Do you? Do you really agree with me? Or are you just saying that to get me? And that's where trust comes into a relationship. Is this guy really saying, hey, he agrees with me? I killed two people. Yeah. That can't be, because if you're lying to people, that was one thing we never did as negotiators. We never lied to people because there was a very good chance that a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now, we would be right back in this situation negotiating with that person again because the problem hadn't gone away. And if they ever felt that we lied to them, then there was no way I was going to have the trust and they were going to be able to be honest with me to help me get out. And people would say to us, hey, I'll come out, but you got to promise me I'm not going to go to jail. And we would have to say to people, well, I'm sorry, when you come out, you are going to go to jail. And then we would try to deflect the conversation to something that was better.
Mm.
Sometimes we had something, sometimes we didn't, but that's where we were. Here we are. I know you don't want to go to jail, but you are going to go to jail. But at least the next time I'm negotiating with you, you're not going to say, Tucker, you lied to me. You lied to me. Like, oh, I didn't. I didn't lie to you. I told you you were going to jail and you went to jail. So as long as you've got that trust, and let's face it, hostage and hostage negotiator is a relationship just like, boss subordinate, parent child, husband wife. And what's the overarching emotion or important thing about all those relationships? Trust. If I don't trust you, we can't have a good relationship.
Yeah. Trust is so important in that relationship. And I love what you're talking about, help me understand, because I use a slightly different term when I say I can be agreeable without agreeing. I can approach it from, so I can approach myself. So I'm listening, I'm agreeing, I understand your point. And as you say, you might have done that for various reasons. I can understand that point. I don't agree that it's right, but I'm using it as approaching it from a perspective of creating that rapport when interacting with people. What about with yourself? I mean, from that side of things, again, I guess we're coming back to being honest with yourself and being, because you embrace the pain. I mean, because that can be really difficult. And I found that quote, it is a painful thing to look at your own trouble, to know that you yourself and no one else has made it. And that was from Sophocles. And it's, when you're talking about embracing the pain, I mean, because how do we do that? How do we actually, from your perspective, what's your experience of, accepting, hey, it's my expletive up.
I think that goes back to character. I think that goes back, to be willing. It goes back to character. I think it goes back to maturity. I think a lot of young people don't have that. That prefrontal cortex has not, come together yet. It's not developed to where we want it, especially for younger people. Much harder for them to do. But if you're a person in your mid to late 20s and 30s and 40s, and you can't be radically honest with yourself, like if it'd be interesting to see. I'd love to do this experiment. Write down what you think you are bad at, or what things that people would say you're bad at, and then ask other people, like your colleagues at work or your spouse, here's what I think I'm bad at. Do you agree with that? Or like, no, it would be interesting just to see the dynamic. What would your wife say about you? What would your husband say about you? What would your subordinates say about you? And I think that would be a good exercise for people to do. What one thing, don't say a word. Just let me, as your subordinate, tell you what I think your issues are.
Yeah.
And the only thing you can say to me is thank you. You can't argue with me. You can't say you're full of crap. You can't say I'm going to transfer you or I'm going to fire you. I mean, can you imagine the confidence? Can you imagine the character of a boss that would be able to do that to their subordinates? I think that would be an amazing thing to do. I think it's something that we should do. There's a woman here in the United States who runs a company called Athletic Greens called her name is Kat Cole. And she talks every month. She sits down with her spouse and her subordinates, and it's a two-way conversation. And they ask each other 6 questions. I'm going to see if I can remember them. First one is, what's the best thing that's happened to you in the last 30 days? The second thing, what's the worst thing that's happened to you in the last 30 days? The third one is, how can I be a better spouse, subordinate, boss, whatever? The next thing is, one of them is, what are you most grateful for? What are you most worried about? And I can't remember what the 6th thing is, but they do that every 30 days. So that, again, talk about connecting, talk about, listening to understand. Oh, I know Terry, the last 30 days, this is what he's worried about, or this is what he's concerned about, or this is the best thing that's happened to him, or whatever. I mean, you get to know people with 6 questions.
Yeah.
But how confident are you that you would allow people to criticize you, to say, here's where I think you need some work. Talk about New Year's resolutions. All right, you guys come up with my New Year's resolutions for me. Where do I need work?
Yeah, that could be very painful to embrace.
It could be. It could, but if it was done from a position of growth. I want you to get better. I want you to grow, not I'm trying to hurt you. That's where I think it could go off the rails, where, I'm going to say something because I'm going to really stick it to that person. No, I'm not trying to stick it to you. I'm trying to find a way, to trust, to make you a better human being, to make you a better boss, to make you a better subordinate, to make you a better accounting, whatever it is. Yeah. I think that would be an amazing thing if somebody had the guts to do that.
That's pretty cool. I love that, because when you're talking about embrace the pain, and that's what I'm saying, is it difficult when we're in that situation? Because I think life's pretty easy, and if someone does that, I mean, I had that similar in a corporate environment last week. Again, coming back to that, it was a board situation, and I don't agree. From my knowledge, and I'm the CEO, and the board has a position, and from my perspective, I don't agree. But it's, as I said, it's not about, my opinion is irrelevant here. And I wrote this, my opinion's irrelevant. I will follow what you say to do because you're the board, and that's my job to do that. Whether I agree or not is irrelevant. My opinion on the matter is irrelevant. I've put my case forward, and my job is to follow what you say to do. So that's what I will be doing. And from that side of things, that it could have been painful for me to do that, but I recognized what the situation was, and it wasn't personal, which is, how often do we take things personal when we shouldn't? It was just, we have a difference of opinion, but the circumstance is, you're the board, I'm the CEO. My job is to do, to do the day-to-day of the strategy that you set. And if this is the criteria that you set for that strategy, I need to follow that. And that's how that harmony works. And for me, so that's where, when you're talking about embracing the pain, do we actually make that more painful than it is, if we, rather than just accepting that situation? Coming back to your friend, the admiral in the Vietnam thing, controlling what you can control, going, okay, do I make this more difficult by fighting against something that I know I don't have control over, or do I just accept that? And is that what embracing the pain is? Because I'm just wondering, around that time, does the term pain, does it need to be painful, or can it just be as simple as, okay, I accept that?
I think we all, I guess, let me try to put it this way, and this is kind of the way I look at that. We're all going to experience pain in our lives. The thing about it is, though, our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and avoid discomfort and to seek pleasure. So to the brain, the status quo, the way things are right now, it's comfortable, it's familiar, just leave it alone. I mean, it would be like if you got up this morning and be like, I'm going to go skydiving. Your brain would be like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. The plane might crash, or your parachute may not open, or your brain will immediately kick in and start putting all kinds of things, negative things, into your mind. And so what I used to always tell my basketball players, you need to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah. And so, it's, and I recommend this to people, and I do it every day myself. I try to find at least one thing every day that makes me nervous, that scares me, that makes me uncomfortable, that's potentially embarrassing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I hate going to the dentist. Pick up the phone and make your appointment to go to the dentist. Well, that's no big deal. Well, I hate going to the dentist. Yeah, it is a little bit scary. I'm going to get up an hour earlier and work out. I'm going to go to bed an hour. What things that you don't want to do those things. And why I say that is, if you do those small things every day, when the big disasters in life hit us, we lose somebody who's close to us, we get let go from our job, we find out we have a chronic or a terminal illness, you'll be much more resilient to handle those things than the people who just kind of muddle through life. And it's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not going to do anything outside my comfort zone. I like my comfort zone. You cannot grow in your comfort zone.
No. I love that, from that perspective, and make yourself uncomfortable. Because I had that from when I was younger, and even it was as simple as looking what shoe you tie first, and try to do the other one. It's funny that does feel uncomfortable initially, because I did it.
Brush your teeth with the opposite hand. It's like, oh, this is weird. It's like, yeah.
And Does it? I mean, from that side of things, can you get used to that? Because for me, I found making that a conscious thing where I was going, okay, I'm going to put myself in that situation regardless. I'm going to do this. It doesn't, whatever. Put myself. If someone laughs at me, that's okay, and I'm going to own it. That was coming back to what we were talking before. If I mess up, I'm going to own that. I had that with still a member of Toastmasters and attend that, and then the meeting we had one last night, but 2 weeks ago, I was the Toastmaster, and when I first got up, my mind was focused elsewhere, and I thought I was doing I felt I wasn't focused and out of a little bit out of control, and just it was a little bit all over the shop is what I felt. Others didn't get that because they gave feedback, but I immediately from that went, okay, I put myself in that situation. That's uncomfortable. What I need to do is be, and I tapped it because I have a program called Fearless, which is about finding confidence. Because I don't think confidence is something that you have; it's something you do. You can switch it on immediately. Is my thing, and so I did. I went through. Okay, here it is. Just switch how you're doing that, and then I got up and it was fine. It looked fine for everybody else. They didn't see anything different, but for me, it felt very, very different. And getting into that space of being uncomfortable, I'm just wondering, does it have to be difficult? Because I find that, and maybe it's the training that I've done on myself, that it's actually easy to do. You just do it, and maybe that's because
I don't think it is easy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I think it goes, people like, they like sitting on the couch, eating bonbons, watching TV. It's comfortable, it's familiar, it feels good, it's safe. But you're not growing. You're not improving. You're not getting better in your life. But it's easy. It's easy. It's easy not to, yeah, I should go to the gym today. No, not doing it. It's easy. That's easy. That's easy. It's hard to say, okay, I'm going to put my tennis shoes on and my sweats on. I'm going to the gym. That's, I don't want to do that. It's been a hard day at work. I don't feel like doing it. Whenever I hear myself say, I don't want to do that, I'm like, how can I do that? Or why should I do that? I say that to myself because there's a lot of things, especially with having one leg and being in a wheelchair. There's a lot of things. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to treatment every 3 weeks. It sucks, but I'm going to do that. And if you think about it, most people quit when they're tired. Imagine if you lived your life and quit when you're done. And there's a big difference between those two. I'm tired, but I'm not done yet. So I got to keep going. But most people quit when they're tired. Imagine if you lived your life where you quit when you're done. When I get to my goal, when I get to where I feel I need to be, then I'll quit. I'm not quitting just because I'm tired. Think how much, if you just had this much grit in your life, how much further down the road you would be than other people. And I may have said this to you before, but there was another American football player by the name of Jerry Rice who said, today I will do what others won't so that tomorrow I can do what others can't. And I love that. I'm going to do stuff today that's going to make me grow. And all those people that are going to sit on their couch and not go to the gym, you know what? I'm going to be that much further ahead of them, and then that much further ahead. And it doesn't just apply to physical stuff. I mean, it applies to, education. It applies to studying. It applies to, Toastmasters. You want to be a better speaker, all this kind of stuff. What are you willing to do that everybody else isn't? And if you do that, you're so much further down the road to success or whatever you want than those people who are just kind of like, I always say that people live a casual life, and as a result, their goals, their dreams, their ambitions become a casualty of that unplanned living.
How much of that do you think is habit? Because listening to you talk, and I really want to understand the difficult component of that. Because for me, I mean, I always wanted to find easy ways of doing things, and that's where a number of the corporate programs that I work with within organizations, so exceptional effort, which is about making things easy, simple, going back to the simple processes and doing that. And I just wonder how much of that, you talk about this being difficult. Is that because and I'll relate from my experience. I had busy day. My days are generally very busy, which I'm okay because I plan it around being busy, but I plan it around, like you say, results. It's not about the effort. It's about I want to get it done as quickly as I can. And last week one of the things I do is a weekly CEO speech, and I'd record it so I can, because people can't do that. And I had one planned that I was going to. I hadn't planned it out. I hadn't even written it. I had it in my mind. This is what I was going to say, and I was thinking. I was looking at my day, going, okay, I've got an interview coming up that's going to take it, and so I'm going to be doing this at 10:30 at night, which I wasn't looking forward to. And then because I've got to write this thing, record it, distribute it, and then I was doing something, and before meeting it, and it was about I had a bit of time. It was half an hour before our meeting came, and I needed to have some dinner, and that I think I need to have some anyway. I don't know. It was about half an hour before a meeting that I had to do that was coming up, and I went. I can't remember. I was gonna have a rest, and said, no, I'll just start writing this speech out, so at least I've got the written part out of the way, and then I can record it later. Well, I started it, I wrote it, I shot it, I filmed, I edited it in less than 20 minutes, and had it done and out. And that's where I was wondering, that's what I was thinking from this part of the thing, do we make it difficult by thinking about it, going, this is going to be difficult? Because I wasn't thinking that was going to be difficult. I just said, okay, I'll start this and do what I can and get it done, not thinking it'll be difficult. And I literally, from nothing, outside of a thought in my head, had it done within less than 20 minutes, finished, so I didn't have to worry about it again. And I'm just wondering, from that difficult thing, is this a habit that we get ourselves into, thinking things are difficult, then we actually make it difficult because our reticular activating system kicks in, and we start noticing the things that make it difficult, whereas difficult wasn't something that was in my mind for this. It was just, I need to do it. So, and I've got a bit of time here, I'll start it, but I ended up finishing it.
Well, I think back on when I was in college, and this happened all the time. People would go out and they would party the night before a test, and they'd come into the test, they'd come in a little hungover.
Yeah.
And what did they always say? Oh, man, I'm really hungover. I don't feel very good. I'm not going to do very good on this test. I'm probably going to flunk this test. Nobody ever came into the thing and said, hey, I paid attention during the semester. I'm going to do great on this test. Nobody ever went to the positive. Everybody goes to the negative. And I think it's just hardwired in our brains that we immediately go to, I can't do that. And, I call my company Motivational Check. And motivation is not enough. I think you hit on a word a minute ago. I think you need three things. I look at success as a three-legged stool. You need three things: motivation, discipline, and good habits.
Yeah.
If you have all three of those, I think you can accomplish anything in life. If you're missing any one of those, incredibly hard to do anything productive, successful in life. I mean, if you're motivated, but you don't have good habits, you want to be an athlete and you're eating crap and you're not resting. Okay, you don't have good habits. It's going to be hard to be an athlete. If you have good habits and you're motivated, but you're not disciplined to implement those habits, you're not going to be successful. I mean, I think you need all three. And if any one of those legs of the stool is either cut off or not there, the stool will be wobbly, or you're just physically going to fall over because you don't have all three. You got all three, I think you're almost unstoppable.
Yeah, it's fascinating you talk about that. From the perspective of the school, as you mentioned, people studying, because that's what I look at with my son, is he's getting exceptional results. And now he put in a lot of work to get back up to the standard we talked about, where he was. But now he's got to a point, and as much as it's frustrating to watch, it's like he's a product of my own max time program, because I've taught him this return on effort. Focus on the things that are going to give you the maximum return. So, and that's what he does. And there's days where I'll see I know he's got a fair load on, because I'll see him, and we're set up. He doesn't, like, because of COVID, we set up here down here where my desk is looking out over the forest that we've got behind us, and we've got a fireplace, and then his desk is on the other side. And after that, we've never changed. And so that's where he does his stuff. So I'm always can see what he's doing because I'm working at my desk, and I can see what he's doing. And then I'll see like when he's got a lot of work to do, I see him, he pulls out his book and he's studying and he goes through it, and then he packs it up, and because the TV's there as well, he'll start playing his video game. And I'm looking at going, I can see he's put a lot of effort in. Then other days I can see he's done a little bit, and then he's moved on. And at the end of the day, he's getting the results. So, and that's where I wonder from that perspective, you're talking about the good habits, and it is a cycle. But if you've got the habit first, if you haven't got the habit, it's harder to get the motivation and the discipline. If you've got a disciplined habit, all of a sudden that process becomes easier. And that's where I was wondering about that difficult side of things. If we've got this habit of making things difficult, if we can actually shift that habit and go, okay, then the discipline and motivation becomes a lot easier. Is that your experience as well?
Absolutely. I absolutely, we all seem to go to the negative. Oh, this isn't going to work. I'm terrible. This is going to fail. I always, people would come up to me after my cancer journey and they hear about what I went through and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, Terry, I could never do what you did. And sometimes I'm in a smart aleck mood. I know that's hard to believe, but sometimes I'm in a smart aleck mood, and I'll look at them like, yeah, you're right. You couldn't do it because in your mind, you've already decided. Yeah. You've already gone to the negative. You've already decided you couldn't do this. Why would you go into a business? Why would you go into a presentation thinking, I'm going to suck at this? Yeah. This is going to be terrible. I always tell people, if you feel that way, just stay in bed. Get a couple extra hours of sleep. Do that. At least you'll feel better. Because if you're going into it with the attitude that you will not be successful. Now, don't get me wrong. We're all kind of like, this is going to be tough. I'm a little worried about this. That's different than I'm not going to be any good, or this is going to be terrible, or I'm going to fail. That there's a difference between those two. But yes, people always go to the negative. It just seems to be our default. Nobody ever goes to, I'm going to do great on this thing. I've never studied a minute. I don't know anything about microbiology, but you know what? I'm going to ace this test. No, I'm going to flunk it. There's no way. This is hard. You get that. You're your own worst enemy. You got to get out of your way sometimes to be successful.
How much of that do you think? Because I look at it from my perspective, and there's time even when I'm doing interviews. Is it that attitude of going, whatever happens, and this comes from advice I was given. One of my mentors was the former chairman and managing director of BP. And there was one time where I asked him, I needed some advice. He'd always, when I sent him a text message, he'd always respond a few days later. He never responded straight away. I think he wanted me to think about it first. And
smart man.
Exactly. But one day I asked him for advice, and he responded straight because I had a meeting coming up and I was a bit worried about how it was going to go. And he wrote back to me, he said, Damien, my advice to you is I think you should trust yourself that you will deal with it effectively in the moment. Words to that. It's not exactly what he said, but it was words to that effect. Mm-hmm. And that was one of my key advices. And whenever I go into something now, because there's been times where I've started a podcast interview, for example, using that as an example, and I'm with a person going, and I'm in my head, I'm thinking, how am I going to make this work? Because this is not, the person's very, very short answers, and it's difficult. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to make this work? And so now I've got to that stage where I just consciously trust that I can, and then all of a sudden we're running out of time because it's just gone for so long. And I just wonder how much of it is, do we need to learn that shift to go, hey, trust yourself, coming back to what we were talking about before, trust yourself that in the moment you're going to deal with it okay, rather than going, this is not going to work out. But what you mentioned before about what you can control and what you can't control. You can't predict the future. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. If you, for example, you're going to get up and give a presentation, you don't know what's going to happen. You can't control the future. You can control your actions. You can go, I love the one about where there was Steve Jobs, where he's giving this presentation and he went to hit the button on the computer and nothing happened on the stage. And he's got thousands of people in the audience. And he's like, okay, here's an example. and nothing happened. So he continued to talk. The text come out and sorted it all out, and then he wandered back over to the computer, hit the button, and it worked. And he goes, and he used that and said, "Here's an example of how the team works together," or something like that effect. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he used it and said, "Okay, we can," rather than go, "Oh my God, this doesn't work." Is that an attitude? Just going, whatever I can deal with, whatever happens, I can deal with it.
I think that goes back to what we were talking about with confidence. There was I'm really going to date myself now, but back in 1976, when I was 16 years old, there was a U.S. gold medal winning Olympic swimmer who had one of the simplest but greatest quotes that I ever heard. And this is what she said: "Winners think about what they want to happen. Losers think about what they don't want to happen." And I love that. I mean, if you go into a presentation and you see yourself being successful, that's half the battle. That's more than half the battle. As opposed to if you get up there and you start thinking about how horrible it's going to be, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you go into it knowing you're going to screw it up, chances are you're going to screw it up.
Yeah.
But if you go into it thinking you're going to be successful, it may not be up to your standards. But like you said, when you were talking, a minute ago, when we were talking about Toastmasters, it's like I wasn't comfortable with the way I wanted it to be better, but everybody's like, "Yeah, it's great. Yeah, no problem."
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of, what are you thinking about? Do you see yourself being successful, or do you see yourself, being unsuccessful? Because basically what you see more than likely, or let me rephrase that, what you look for, you will see.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for, it's like, oh, I'm looking for, the criminal as a policeman. I'm always looking for the criminal. Well, chances are I'm going to see everybody as a criminal, as opposed to I'm looking for human beings that aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Okay, that's a human being. Now we've got to address some behavior situations that maybe I got to take you to jail. Maybe I just talk to you, whatever it is. But it's all, what you're looking for most of the time is what we see in life.
Yeah. I love that, because you do project out what you are into the world, and that's what you see. And then part of your reticular activating plays part of that. And is this one, because we're talking about, I mean, I think we're gonna have to do a part 2 on this, because we've got to 2 of the 4 truths. I think we're gonna
That's cool. We can do another one. I love talking to you. You're great.
Same, and I thank you. I appreciate that, but it's same. But and that's where I was coming to, because we're talking about embracing the pain, and this is part of that. When we're in those situations, just accepting, hey, I love that analogy you talked about with the Admiral, where they accepted what they could control and focused on that. And is that, when we're talking about embracing the pain, where you're getting up and you've got a situation, you're not sure how it's going to go, is it, from that side of things, is that part of that embracing the pain, where you're going, okay, I what I can control is, I can't control what's going to happen. I can't, because I can't predict the future. If I did, if you could predict the future, I'm sure there were 6 numbers or 8 numbers, whatever your system is, you would have picked a long time ago. You'd be on a beach in Maui, wherever it is,
I would.
Exactly. So because we can't predict the future, that's not something we can control. So from that side of things, do we look at it and go, well, what can I control? Well, I can control in that situation. When something happens, I can maybe take a moment to relax, assess what's happened, listen. We talked about listening, and then decide, what do I do with that? And is that, from your experience, something that gives you confidence as well?
I think it is. I think it's, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. And that's, I think, really in our own minds, do we have a bad experience? Do we have a bad experience? I mean, if you continue to have bad experiences over and over and over again, I can understand why people expect a bad experience, because that's all they know. But if you come back from that, I'll give you an example. I had an electrocardiogram the last time I was in treatment for the cancer in my lungs, and I had an IV in my arm. And the woman said to me, "Do you have appointments after this?" I said, "I don't have any appointments, but I'm going back to the infusion center. They're going to put heparin in the line, wrap it up, and I'm going to use it tomorrow." And she said, "You can't do that." I said, "What do you mean I can't do that?" "You can't leave the hospital with an IV in." And I said, "Watch me." And her response, and again, this was a young woman who engaged her mouth before she engaged her brain. She says to me, "I'll call the cops on you." I'm like, oh, you'll call the police because I have an IV in me? It was like, and I'm like, I'm not even, and right then I'm like, okay, Terry, you're smart enough, you're mature enough, you're old enough. Don't engage. Just let it go.
Yeah.
And I went back and told somebody, I'm like, look, she tried to intimidate me. She tried to bully me. It didn't work for me. I mean, it's kind of, I almost wanted to say, oh, the cops, good. You should call them. Maybe I'll know one of them. I think, that's like calling the cops on another cop when you haven't done, I wanted to say, cops only enforce the laws. They don't enforce your policies and procedures. Sorry. Nothing they can do about that. But this was just something.
I think it's a whole that one's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, that's a whole. Yeah, exactly. But it was just kind of one of those things where it was like, when I was younger, I might have started to get into it with her, but it was like, no, nothing good is going to come of this. Just shut it down and know that I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, I'm confident enough that I can handle this in an appropriate way when we're done. I don't need to engage with her. Go ahead, call the police. She didn't. But we got to a point where the cardiac unit and the cancer unit are now going to do education with each other about how each other works together. So something good is going to come out of this. We didn't have to, I'm the patient, you got to do it. Oh, don't be a jerk about it. But that just comes from being older and I don't know if I'm wiser, but a little more confident in my life that I don't need to engage with this young lady, to make my point. There's no upside to doing this.
Yeah, I love that. And that older and wiser analogy of having that experience and going, well, we don't need to engage. It's not and having that broader perspective from the, because with the embracing that pain again, from that side of things. I mean, because you sound like you had processes that you went through to get to that. From my experience, if we're going to put it in practical examples of how to get to that from a listener side of things, because just making some notes as you're talking, because you had some great points in there, is, we've got, you mentioned about habits, and that's one of your three pillars. Is habits important? And we know we actually operate from habits. When I say we, you and I know that, and hopefully people are learning that they're actually, most of what they do is autopilot, and that's what they do. Now, to change a habit, it takes, depending on which study you read, somewhere between 21 and longer times.
Right.
Repeating a new behavior. You can't just stop a habit. You've got to replace it with something else. Is it because from my experience, what I've done, and that's why I only had that one resolution of listening more, is what I've done in the past, and I do this with corporates as well, and it works really, really well, is we make a list of all the things that are problems. One of the continuous improvement program that I work through as part of Exceptional Effort is we get them all together, all of this particular stuff. We make a list of these are the problems to fix, and then we rank them. And I do this deliberately for that reason. Then I say, okay, can we fix all these all at once? Or what's the likelihood that we can fix them all at once? And I'm yet to get a yes. It can be done. It's not practical. So I said, what if we focus on these top two, get them fixed, and then we move down the list? Does that sound like a reasonable solution? And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. And then we do that, and we start working through that process. And I'm just wondering, because from my experience, what I found has had the massive change. When I was trying to do everything all at once, I didn't achieve much. But when I stopped, I still was had other bits and pieces I was doing, but I focused on one thing and said, I'm going to get that one thing right. I'm going to do that really well. Then when I've got that, I'll move on to the next thing. And I have that within my, I think you've seen it, my mini goal setting workshop. The 4 steps to attracting your goals is make a big list, then pick the top couple and just focus on that. And I found that's had a dramatic effect. And I'm just wondering how much now, because we talked about social media before, that we've got all these thoughts going all these different places. If we can still do that. have all it, but then bring it back to one and go, okay, I'm going to focus on this one thing, get that, then move on to the next thing. That's what I've found made a difference in my life, and how I'm able to achieve things really, really quickly, because I'm laser focused on that one thing, and then I'll move on to the next one. Is that something? Have you done something similar, or do you have a different process? I'm just trying to make it practical for the listeners to say, okay, how do we get to the stage of embracing the pain? How do we do that? How can we how can we change that habit?
I think certainly in business, the word that comes to mind is delegate. I remember hearing about this man by the name of Bill O'Brien at Hanover Insurance. And he said, I noticed that all my senior vice presidents, executive vice presidents, vice president, their calendars were broken down into 15-minute cycles. 15 minutes, 15 minutes. And he's like, if I got an EVP that's having a meeting about an issue for 15 minutes, he says, that says to me that we need to push that problem down to the lower levels, where the EVPs, the VPs, we should be having meetings that spend 2 or 3 days figuring out like you say, here's the big thing, here's the big challenges in our life. Us as senior management, that's what we should be focusing our time on, not something that some director could fix in 10 minutes that we've got to get involved in because we think we're so important. No, you've got to delegate that stuff down. Now, personally, there's a lot of stuff you can't delegate. There's a lot of stuff that I'd probably get punched in the face with if I delegated to my wife. So I would rather not do that. I love my wife. I don't want to get hurt. And so. I really think you have to decide. You can't be everything to everybody. You can't do everything for everybody, including yourself. So you have to decide, what do you want to work on? Like you said, I want to work this year on being a better listener. That to me is the one thing that I want to get done this year. Okay. That's doable, as opposed to, well, I want to be a better listener, and I want to write my reports faster, and I want to do meetings this way. All of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's so out of control that you can't possibly manage it. I don't care how good you are. I think you need to. What's the thing I want to work on, and I want to work on that, and I want to devote my time to it, as opposed to I'm going to spend a few minutes here and a few minutes here and a few minutes here and a few minutes here. But that's how we live our lives. It's quick service. It's instant gratification. I want this. Okay, now I'm moving on to this other thing. And do we ever really get anything done? Or are we just kind of like the hamster on the wheel going round and round and round and really not getting anything done?
Yeah, I love that. And what I really loved, I hadn't made that, even though I was doing it, I hadn't consciously been aware of it. But what you said there was, you've got to focus on what are the big things. As you said, the CEO, if they're doing all these little things that can be delegated, but same token, that principle applies to your life. It's what is that big thing, and you linked it to the hamster on the wheel. A lot of times we spend all this time doing this busy work, so to speak, and we're just not really doing the key things that are going to give us the maximum impact. And that's what I took from that part where you're talking about the strategy. We've got to spend that time doing that. So that's a really extremely practical thing I think people can take away from that perspective. Because when we're talking about controlling your mind, or it will control you, and embrace the pain, that's a really practical way of doing that. Focus on that big thing, like you said, the CEO, other stuff. Even if you can't delegate it, it's not the priority. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. We're running out of time, but is there anything else you wanted to add to that before we wind up? Or
no, I've shot my mouth off a lot in the last almost 2 hours now. So I think I'm good. I think we're good for what we've done. Like I said, I really enjoy talking with you. You challenge me, and I like people that do that, and I hope I do. So
I love it's from my perspective as well. Always love it. And I love the attitude and the background that you bring to it, and the stories, the practical things, because you open up things that I think I'm doing unconsciously, but and they talk about that. People usually they're really successful. They do things, but they're not sure how they do it. And you bring that out in me, going, "Oh yeah, that's what I'm doing," and I love that. And then that helps if you're consciously aware of it. You can then improve on it and make it even better. So I love it.
Yeah, and I think stories do. They help people remember the thought or the idea or what you're trying to do. Here's a story around that. Oh, okay, that makes sense. As opposed to, well, let me give you 5 things. You're not going to remember those 5 things, but if you remember the story, you're getting what needs to be gotten.
Yeah, great point. Great point. I love that. The stories we remember stories.
We do.
Terry, it has been a pleasure chatting to you as always, and I'm excited to finish this off. We have to do a part two, obviously, because we've got to do the other two.
I love it.
Two
I love it.
of the four truths. We've got to go do the other two. So we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. It was good seeing you.
Thank you for being part of the Share.care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes for others and for you.